Okay, start streaming. I've already popped out the chat. YouTube doesn't need me to hit the start streaming button, and we are live. Let's give it a few minutes for folks to start streaming in, if you know what I mean. Wow, I thought it was okay. Is this thing on?
Is the thing on? Am I
Hello.
all alone?
Nobody
Need a
was
bigger
laughing at
gun.
my very funny jokes, so I had to assume you couldn't hear me. We've got a concurrent viewer and 2 comments. Incredible. Welcome, Yeetman or Felix Warren.
There we go.
15. All right. That's a much more respectable number. Guitar's here.
I don't. Mini player.
Unofficial Hotel Organic. Edelgard PFP. Sure. So Dona Umi, hello. Nice to see ya. Ah, yes, Tenek. Tenek is here. Tenek is joining us in the voice chat.
Hello.
That's Tenek. Gonna turn you up just a little bit.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you just fine. Just wanted to turn you up a little.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Explanation Point Anime Club. Welcome to this month's Anime Club, where we're going to be talking about the 2019-ish smash hit anime Megalobox for Anime Club. As you can tell, I am not at peak performance. I had something of a get-together last night. Went too hard, stayed up too late, got home too late, slept too bad. So I'm going to have less of a sharp and insightful mind than usual, but also less of a filter. So let's see how this turns out, he says, sipping his coffee. Scrub, you were the one who suggested Megalobox to introduce us to the world of Megalonia. How about you introduce the chat to the show that you have decided to subject us to?
All right.
By the way, before we get to that, I'm never going to forgive you people. You understand that? For selecting Megalobox over Scum's Wish.
It was close enough, okay?
It was surprisingly close. I expected it to be like 1090.
I almost expected it to almost expected Megalobox to not win just because
I pushed so hard for it.
You aggressively said, like, hey, you're gonna pick this, and the one thing people don't like is getting told what to do.
I am technically an influencer. I know how to do my job. Nomad161 says that Megalobox Season 2 is amazing. I'm sure it is.
I can tell from his name.
Mm-hmm. And profile pic.
It's alright. It's kind of weird.
Well, we're not going to be talking about that today.
Yeah, we're not talking about that.
Yeah, I don't want to go into it. The simplest I could say is the first one's an underdog story, the second's a redemption story.
All right. I don't know who needs redeeming.
Clearly it's me, because I feel like I'm going to be a bit on the back foot for this one, but let's get into
You gotta watch that footwork. Distribute it evenly, 50-50.
You want to make sure those punches sound good, too.
So tell us about Megalobox.
In this metaphorical boxing match, I will discuss Megalobox and provide the opener for us.
Oh, the opener's terrible.
Well, you asked me to describe the world.
I know. Keep going. Shut up.
Megalobox is a world that's a kind of just like a... I hesitate to say like cyberpunk. It's more just like basically what our world would be like in 10 years in Arizona.
Yeah, junk punk actually is a great description of what it is.
It is junk punk, yeah. You got your rough brown outer city where people just aren't citizens and just try to survive, and you have chrome everything in the actual city, which is basically just for the rich people and people who are lucky.
Mm-hmm.
But the setting isn't really what matters in this show. What matters is that we get to meet our main character, Joe, who is a underground boxer and is illegally fixing matches in underground rings with very low regulations. He absolutely wants to be a great boxer. He wants to fight his opponents just the best he possibly can, and he's out here getting punched by idiots who have no idea how to throw a punch.
Is that really
Yes,
true?
Knights. It's like another retelling of story of Rocky.
Mm-hmm.
This is a show is inspired by Austin and Joe.
Mm-hmm.
If you couldn't tell by that name, it came out the 50th anniversary of Austin and No Joe, which I believe you had some. You were a bit shocked by that.
I was, but I wasn't. Like, after I forgot that was true, and then I was watching it again, and I'm like, this is just Ashita no Joe. And then he called himself Joe, and I was like, what the shit? But then it said 50th anniversary project Ashita no Joe, and I was like, what the hell? And then I was like, wait, no, I remember that. I remember that being true. I talked about that on the Weebcast or something. Also, why do I care? I've never seen Ashita no Joe. Yeah.
Wait, I mean, how did it take you one entire rewatch to realize that? I feel like it's pretty easy to spot in the OP.
Mm-hmm. No, I just forgot.
Right.
Also, if you don't know, Austin no Joe, I guess spoilers for an anime that's over like 50 years old.
Like 55 almost now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The main character at the end dies, which is why there's so much death theming in the titles, and all the mid-credit rolls say "not dead yet."
Mm-hmm.
And we'll discuss what that means at the end.
Yeah, I was
of
wondering
this
about
show.
that, so I'm glad that you knew.
Wait, have you seen Ashita no Joe Scrub? Or read it?
Not
For that matter.
personally, no.
Is Tenic
Okay.
our resident expert?
No, I haven't watched nor read Ashita no Joe. But I was told once that if I want to watch Megalobox, I should read Ashita no Joe first, and that's why I haven't seen it for 5 years.
Mm.
And now I realized I didn't care enough.
I highly doubt you need to read or watch Austin no Joe before Megalobox. Megalobox is pretty self-contained. We get episode 1. Would you like to read the discussion, the description for episode 1?
We haven't talked about the overall points yet.
Okay, fine. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, Huzefa says Bro is now an anime channel. You better not be talking about me. Don't you dare call me an anime channel.
That's slander?
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna sue you?
I've done videos that aren't about anime.
Hmm.
So, what's some points you'd like to bring up? Your overall points.
That the aesthetic, the vibe, and the setting of the show are immaculate.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
No doubt.
Yeah, no, Scrub compared it to Cowboy Bebop. I think we've all compared it to Cowboy Bebop.
I was gonna say the same thing, even though I haven't finished
No,
Cowboy
I
Bebop.
meant Fire King, not Scrub. Sorry. Yeah, Fire King, I think, said it was a more literally grounded Cowboy Bebop, which was
Oh
very
yeah, I
fun.
did.
Mm-hmm.
It honestly feels like what Cowboy Bebop would be
If it were on
if
Earth.
it was. Yeah.
Not to mention our protagonist, Spike Spiegel.
They have similar hairdo.
Mm-hmm. And similar bone structure.
Yep. Now we only need a death battle to see who would be better.
That's debatable after all the matches Joe has gone through.
Yeah, if Joe has bones anymore after getting punched in the face by superpowered robot arms, but we'll get to that later. No, the aesthetic of the show is incredible. The color palette is a little bit samey sometimes, but not in a way that I mind so much. It's just you get the same thing with like Trigun. You get it with what's the big show I'm thinking of that has that deserty vibe? I'm thinking of
Desert
something
Punk.
else. Sure, why not?
I was gonna say it has that mid 2000s video game brown aesthetic in a lot of cases.
Fallout New Vegas. No, there's this very distinctive tone that anime that take place in the Mojave Desert have. No. And this show pulls it off incredibly. The mix of that horrible, dysfunctional non-society that Joe comes from with all of the knockoffs of advanced tech. Aesthetically, it's very good, which is a shame because it doesn't really do anything with the aesthetic. It feels like the aesthetic was bolted on because either the writer said this story is nothing if we don't add something to make it have some flair, or the executive said, hey, nobody's going to watch a normal boxing show, you need to put robots in it.
Well,
all right, first point I disagree with.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree with it
the
too.
First negative point.
Yeah, of course. For context, I rated this show in my top 10. What else is in my top 10? I have no idea. I just know Megalobox goes there.
Sure.
I don't know stuff like that, but I will say that like the steampunk aesthetic kind of does. No, not steampunk. Sorry, the junk punk aesthetic and like the entire atmosphere of the world kind of fits in with it because it's practically an underdog story. Like I said,
I would say that the setting itself is a perfect way to show like how the characters have this mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And not just that though, like how like the setting and all that, like how that, like you said, there are people wearing robot arms or exoskeleton arms, punching the shit out of each other. Can't really have that in a normal setting.
I'm saying is that the people having the robot arm exoskeletons doesn't matter. It could just be a normal boxing anime. The robot arm exoskeletons add nothing. Actually,
it kind of does, because the whole story is he's going without, later in the series, it turns out he's going no exoskeleton arms, trying to fight his way up while everyone basically has an advantage.
Which is an incredible twist, and I loved that. But he holds his own just fine.
Yeah, it's
like we'll get into this.
Thematically, it's there to make him the biggest underdog they can.
Sure, yeah. It's just from a viewer's perspective. These the gear, the robot arm exoskeleton, it's called gear. The people who wear it, let me reverse what I'm thinking. Joe, in his matches, pretty much always ends them with one decisive uppercut. At the end of the match, he gets one really good punch in and the guy goes unconscious. Because punches from human fists are really dangerous, and if you get hit by one, it's not a good time for you. That's why boxing is such a dangerous sport, even without the superpowered robot arms. How are these people not just dying? Because gear doesn't add any defensive stats to you. If you get punched with a superpowered robot arm, you die.
It kind of does, because you can use the gear also like a shield. There's points where it's like, hey, he's wearing some really heavy shield gear.
Sure, but if you get punched in the face where your shield is not, you still should just die.
Or get easily or knocked unconscious, so therefore it's more of a, what would it be called? Skill-based, where that way you have to outplay your opponent before they punch you in the face hard enough to kill you.
Except that it's not that, because Joe takes punches from gear to the face and continues his match just fine. Like, maybe he gets knocked down for dramatic effects every now and then, but not in a way that is significantly different from a normal human punch.
That's true.
Yeah, true. It's one you could say that's a flaw in the show.
I will say that I love gear in terms of its thematic purposes, how it makes Joe an underdog, and how each boxer that wears it, that we get a significant time with, it's a symbol of them coping with something.
Mm-hmm.
They are laying something over them to ignore a problem they have.
Mm-hmm.
However, no, I won't defend that yeah, if you think about it logically, I can't just say throw that out. It doesn't matter to the show because everything matters to a show.
It is
so
the show.
I
It is
can't
the
just
premise of the
ignore.
show.
I can't just ignore what is a real problem. So I'll give you that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like that was my biggest thing is that the main conceit of the show doesn't really matter. Like Joe going into the ring like with no gear at all, just his regular human fists against the menace of technology and all of these people who are more privileged than him. That they can afford to have this gear, that they have the connections to get this cutting edge gear. I love that. I wish it mattered. But it doesn't, because first off, Joe is the only gearless fighter we see. We don't see any regular boxing matches to compare this to. We have to just assume that they are like regular boxing matches in the real world, if they exist at all. We don't see any gearless fighters fighting geared fighters, except for Joe, and Joe wins every fight where he has no gear against a geared fighter. So the viewer is left to determine that gear is a detriment to boxing.
Well, I'm not sure if I quite agree with that, but I feel like you're right that there's no point at which the show clearly establishes in what way one is stronger with gear than without it. It's just this vague sense of
You punch better.
technology. Yeah, you punch better, but what does that mean
But you don't
exactly?
punch better.
No,
You
man, we're
punch
not
the
going to
same
talk
way.
about season 2. And that's some spoilers too.
I would argue that it does show us how good punch better these gear can be.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the first real match they have against Shark, where Joe is just being a cocky asshole and then gets hit once
Be
and
right back.
immediately starts shitting his pants.
Mm-hmm. I don't remember that so well. I will take your word for it. I wish that had kept up. I
mean, they have reasons for it. Like, obviously, there's sometimes, yeah, but
I wish Joe had constantly been in a situation where one punch to the face or the gut was the end. Then we have a Glass Joe from Punch-Out situation. Another tie-in.
Yeah, that is understandable. I think that would be very fun and would add something. I would argue that, again, this is a situation where I'm arguing that they definitely leaned towards a different point when making this anime, but I can't argue that they didn't cover all of their bases.
No, like
But
I feel like the show is it leans very heavily on its themes. It's the kind of show that is trying to send a message by using a narrative, and I despise that.
I enjoy it. I enjoy that boxing matches are basically just two people talking to each other. To me, this is a boxing anime that doesn't care about boxing.
Like, I'm not usually going to say that it doesn't do the things that it tries to do fairly well. But I put a very heavy emphasis on narrative construction. It's what I go into shows for. And when I see something like this, or like Evangelion, or like Serial Experiments Lane, where the author is writing an essay and using characters to deliver that essay instead of writing a story and improving that story with themes, I'm going to start to have a problem.
So it's more that you have a problem when the themes take over the story.
More when I have a problem when the story is in service of the themes than when the themes are in service of the story. Hello, Lord Satan. Nice to see you. Took some balls to do that finale. I disagree entirely, but we'll get to that in the finale. Soundtrack is amazing. I'll give you that, except when Sachio starts rapping. Budget ran out for the finale. Could be. All right. We should talk about... Say again?
I just wanted to point out, because I found it kind of amusing. I'm not sure if any of you remember, but like the third Crunchyroll Anime Awards for the anime from 2018, Megalobox was basically like the judge's darling. It got 8 nominations, which is the most that any show got, and it won nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And also, what totally perplexed me after watching the show is that Yuri got nominated for best antagonist, which I
Do not agree.
I
Don't
don't
really-
agree with.
Yeah. What
yeah,
else
how
came
is
out
he
in
an antagonist?
2018? Because I remember that being a banner year.
Devilman Crybaby, Agretzko, Violet Evergarden, My
And-
Hero Academia Season 3. That's just reading the ones with the most nominations.
I see.
Gee, I wonder which one swept the awards again.
I don't know. We have Violet Evergarden. Violet Evergarden doesn't really have.
It
an
was My Hero.
antagonist.
We
I
know it's My Hero.
I know. I wasn't answering your question. I was ignoring it because it was so obvious.
I mean, it didn't really sweep. It won 3 awards, I think. It was like the second awards that it swept.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're getting off topic.
Yep.
Yeah.
We should talk about the OP.
OP is not that good. I
OP
don't really
is
care about it.
horrible.
Yeah,
like,
that's
I
me
like-
trying to be nice. It's bad. I skip it every time.
the music, whatever. If you like the music,
The
go
music's
for it.
fine, but the visuals are really boring. That's what kills it for me.
The visuals are really boring and also super edgy, and they look like an early 2000s energy drink commercial. It reminds me of Power Thirst.
I really wish the opening had the ending music.
Sure, the ending music bops.
That sounds
I
awful.
love that song. And the aesthetic's really cool too. It's a shame we don't see more neon in the show. I don't know if that would have improved it, but it would have been a different vibe, and I think I would have liked it.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that the OP didn't really show Joe or any of the major characters through like their actual human figure. It mostly just used, I guess, like items associated with them, and I guess for
Yeah.
Joe,
Items, yeah, and also dog metaphors. This show absolutely loves to beat you over the head with
dog
metaphors.
yeah. Specifically
yeah,
dog
usually
metaphors.
dogs. It kind of swaps out after Aragaki to continuously tell us about the scorpion and the frog,
Mm-hmm.
and then it kind of just decides to forget about it near
Yep.
the end,
Which,
which I mean is fine.
yeah, like I mentioned this
I
in
will-
the Discord chat, but go ahead, finish.
Oh yeah, I will say I'm fine with the scorpion and the frog one. I think that's fine, getting reinforced a lot. I can see you shaking your head disapprovingly.
You shouldn't be able to see that because I'm not doing it. There might be a bit of a
Alright.
lag if you're looking at the stream.
That's fair. Anyway, the point is, the dog metaphors, though, like, it's
Wait, why
fine
do I
at the
do this?
beginning and to introduce new characters, but it does get really heavy-handed later. And I do appreciate them just not bringing it up, like, at all for the final fight. It's just, okay, we're done with metaphors. Now it's just two people beating the shit out of each other because they love it.
Mm-hmm. Ben says that Yuri isn't an antagonist because he agrees with Joe. That's not how antagonism works.
He's not an
Yeah, exactly.
antagonist because he doesn't push the plot forward outside of making Joe, like, fight horny.
Yeah, the antagonist is like society.
The antagonist is almost...
The concept of not being good enough.
The
There
closest
isn't... I don't think there is an antagonist in this show.
There
Yeah,
is, there
closest-
has to be. There
the
always
closest
is.
thing to the antagonist in the show would be God, who is the one lady of the business? Is it like
Shirato.
her-
Yukiko.
Yukiko. She's the closest one for that, not because like she's purposely being that, but more so because she wants to push her product
Mm-hmm.
and not really like kind of
She...
Is the
not allow
antagonist,
her
is it
her fighter
just-
or Joe to fight in a sense. Like she doesn't really think they're qualified to fight each other, even though one of them wants it.
Mhm.
I
If-
could say... You could say her and also...
The mafioso guy.
mafioso
yeah, the mafia.
guy. I feel like if we have to pick a person, then it is basically
Yeah, I
just
feel like it's
mafioso
really
guy.
not
He's,
just one person. It's a bunch of minor characters that
society.
all make it. Yeah.
man versus society plot. which is tight. That's fine. I feel like I was going to say something, and I completely forgot. I'm just looking at this picture of Ghetto Hachia. Let's see. I said the words I mentioned in the Discord that, and I don't know what I mentioned.
You didn't post anything in the Discord recently, unless
I
I
didn't
missed.
say recently.
Oh.
Yeah, the dog metaphors. Right, that's it. I don't have a problem when a show is super heavy-handed on the symbolism and the metaphors. Because I think when you go all out to make your metaphors really obvious and hugely present in the show, it does a lot to enhance melodrama. It makes it to where the entire universe seems like it's bending around this one conflict. And I think that can create a very cool vibe. I just feel like Megalobox kind of lost the thread there. Especially when it switched the metaphors that it was focusing so hard on.
What do you think it dropped the ball?
Why?
Are we going to talk more about? Yeah, like, in what way do you think they dropped the dog symbolism, or that they didn't keep it up?
Well, they kept the dog symbolism up. They just started focusing more on the frog and the scorpion. But I think that they mostly dropped the ball in the sense of what I was talking about earlier when I say that the story exists in service of the message, not the other way around. Which just makes the heavy-handed metaphor seem like they're saying, hey, do you get it? Do you get the very important thing that I'm trying to teach you? Not like, hey, focus really hard on Joe and Yuri. Which,
I see.
yeah, just really takes me out of it personally. Barely remember anything behind the rough plot of Season 1. Cool, but not much new. Season 2 was amazing. I've heard, we didn't watch it. Mid-piece.
I still don't understand why everyone talks so highly about Season 2 and says, yeah, Season 1 was okay. That weirds me out a little bit.
What was the message again? Again, it kind of muddles it. But we can get into that once we start talking about the individual episodes. Do we want to get to that?
I don't see a reason not to. Unless there's anything else about the main show you want to discuss. I don't know if anyone looked up production stuff.
I don't tend to care much.
I should have done
No,
that.
I'm not sure what you have in mind either.
Megalobox episode descriptions. List of Megalobox episodes. Episode 1, Buy or Die / Don't Let the Simmering Fire Die, It'll Light the Way in the Dark. Junk Dog is a megaloboxer who fights using an illegal underground ring and fixed matches under the guidance of Gonsaku Nanbu. He longs to have a real fight and doesn't have a decided result. One evening, he almost hits Yukiko Shirato, the head of the Shirato group, which oversees the Megalonia tournament, with his motorcycle. Yukiko offers to reimburse Junk Dog, but he refuses, instead angrily telling her that the Megalonia tournament is not true megaloboxing. Yuri, Yukiko's bodyguard, is offended by Junk Dog's lack of respect for his employer. Junk Dog picks a fight with him in the hopes of experiencing true megaloboxing. Yuri gives a powerful aura, which gets Junk Dog pumped up, but Yukiko stops the fight from happening. Later on, Junk Dog is getting ready to fight his latest opponent, but Yuri steps into the ring instead. The crowd is shocked since Yuri is actually the Megalobox champion, and there is without Yukiko knowing. Nanbu tries to stop the fight, but is punched out of the ring by Junk Dog, who insists on fighting Yuri with his own skill. This episode sets up the plot.
This episode to me is a perfect episode. This feels like you could just end the show here and it would be great. It would be a full story.
It's...
You think so?
Yeah, it's...
You could if you wanted to be like a short.
But I mean, it wouldn't fulfill on the whole setup of them, having a rematch later, like, for real. Which I feel like is kind of the point of the first episode to kind of...
Yeah, you're gonna...
I guess
you're gonna end the whole short on a cliffhanger?
I mean, there's a lot of shows that have done that. I mean,
sure.
like, There's a lot of like love, death, and robots that's done it. None of them got.
But yeah, I agree. It's a very good first episode. I feel like it does everything a first episode should.
Oh, it sets up the world, sets up the
Mhm.
stakes, sets up the battlefield.
Doesn't set up
Introduces
stakes so much.
doesn't really introduce an antagonist, but does introduce
Yeah, it
a
does.
source of conflict.
It introduces Yuri and Shirato.
Yeah.
Yuri
Yeah.
is at least set up to be a huge antagonist the whole way. He doesn't continue to be an antagonist. He is more of What do you?
He's
even
more of like
call him?
a
He's a goal.
yeah.
He's
I
not
would say
providing any conflict. I guess he is kind of the source of the conflict in that he's making Joe do Megalonia.
Yeah.
well, yeah, he's doing Megalonia to prove himself.
So that he can fight Yuri. Well, a rival is a kind of antagonist, because a rival is directly providing conflict to the protagonist.
Yeah,
Yuri is the end goal? Yuri is...
he's like the final boss.
Murder
Yuri,
Crush.
as it so often is
Once
the end goal.
Punch Crush.
Punch Crush.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
the
because-
motivation and like final boss in the fight.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I think that's the thing I find kind of confusing in calling Yuri an antagonist because he doesn't like. What's the conflict? The conflict is that they want to fight. Is the conflict that he needs to get through the entirety of the ranking system to get the fight Yuri?
Yep.
The conflict is wanting to punch Yuri in his
Smug
beautiful,
face.
chiseled, perfect face.
Is this...
But then
No.
He-
I was gonna say, is this a man versus self show? Is Joe the antagonist? But he's not. That's stupid. That's one of those
No,
things.
Season
no.
2.
That's one of those
which is-
things that sounds good when I say it, but is not true at all.
Yeah, like you said,
that's
that's
season 2.
season 2. That's kind of why it's a redemption arc.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if anything, it's man against society because Yuri doesn't provide any conflict. The only thing that's standing in between the two of them is him needing to get to the top of the rankings.
Okay.
Yeah, and, like-
if I could just say something, we are never doing a season 1 again. I am so sick of all of these people saying, "Well, you just need to watch season 2."
That's fair.
We are
I didn't
only
think we-
ever doing 1-season shows from now on.
That's
Aw.
fair. I didn't think it would be this bad, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know there was a season 2 till I was trying to find the first
it's
season.
Okay, it's no first season. That's why I picked this in the first place. That's why I thought this would be fine. But it turns out a lot of people think for some reason that season 2 is better.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if season 2 has a higher ranking on Mal. Let me check it real quick.
I mean, it probably does because of the effect of how many people
Am I-
liking.
In my opinion, like some of those flaws that you were stating kind of do get addressed in season 2.
Megalobox
ones we were
has
talking about at
7
the beginning.
Yeah, Megalobox season 2 has almost half a point higher than Megalobox.
Yeah, half a point is a bit exaggerating. More like 0.32. It's difference between 8.2 and 7.88.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's... Okay, you're right. It's 0.3 points.
Still pretty impressive, depending on like the count amount.
Yeah, it's really hard to get those points once you get above like a 7.5. Don't remember too much about Megalobox, but for some reason the dynamic of the MC and the villain reminds me of Yusei and Jack from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. I've got nothing for you, but I'm happy that you've got your illusions.
They look similar. I wouldn't know if I would call them like similar. That's a bit.
Let's talk
I would
about
say
Shopkeep
I'd say they're similar
Shopkeep
position wise,
Man?
but let's move back.
Mm-hmm. Shopkeep Man is delightful.
He absolutely is. I hope the best for him.
Mm-hmm. I love his whole dynamic where he bets on the fights and he's like, "Hey Joe, who do I bet on for this fight?" Like wink wink nudge nudge. Like, are you gonna actually fucking punch this man or are you gonna take a dive? Yeah, and how that comes back in the last episode and Joe doesn't answer him. Yeah, I love shit like that. Plus, his character design is just really cute. He reminds me of God from Death Parade.
They do look similar.
Mm-hmm.
Similar vibe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they do have a similar design too.
Don't they?
Yeah, they do. I just
Mhm.
brought them up, and I just finished season 2 last night, so they look remarkably similar. It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
There must be an explanation for this.
If there were, I would know it. Weird
Dude.
anime cinematic universe.
Oculus. It doesn't have a manga version of him. Is Death Parade?
Death
Does
Parade is
have a
anime
manga?
original.
All right. Were they done by the same studio then?
I doubt it. Doesn't look like it. All right. So we get introduced to Junk Dog, who starts out spitting these absolutely. The show's inundated with dog metaphors and dog references for the first 3 episodes, to the point where I just want them to shut up. But Joe is Junk Dog. He fights under the ring name Junk Dog. They don't make tombstones for stray dogs, which is a badass line. He's got that dog in him. The OP is full of dog that turned to motorcycle.
It's symbolic because
Joe
is
is
a
dog
dog.
and Joe ride motorcycle. I have made fan
Wolf
edits
running
of
kind
Megalobox.
of like motorcycle
Congratulations.
riding.
Punch Dog. There's just so little to say that we haven't said already about episode 1.
It's got a really nice. It's got a perfect setup for me, where it's just like this man down on his luck. Like, he wants to actually show the world his talent, and he's trapped down here.
I am always a fan of scenes like the one where Joe drives his motorcycle really fast toward the edge of the cliff and gets off of it at the last moment, but maybe this time I'll fall off. Who knows?
He's an absolute thrill seeker.
Mm-hmm. You're right. I didn't interpret that as thrill seeking so much. I interpret that as not having anything to live for, but not having any reason to die either.
I would have thought it was pushing himself to the edge.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good way to look at it.
I'm not sure. I think that you
get...
two are probably closer to right, and that makes me sad.
I could get more into Yuri from episode 1, but I feel like we should save it for episode 2.
Joe is underdog. Yeah, the show, episode 1 does an excellent job of establishing an atmosphere. Somebody said that the show doesn't do much world building, and that is right. But
it really
doesn't need to.
Like the first episode kind of...
I meant somebody in chat.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I was saying, there really isn't needing to be world building because you kind of see the whole world from the first episode. You see the outskirts, you see the inner city, all from him just riding his bike.
And that's really all you need to know. Like, you don't need any complicated political interplay in this show, and I think its small attempts at trying to include that are to its detriment. But I think it does enough world building to accomplish what it's trying to accomplish. You've got men, you've got punchy gear, you've got wealth disparity in society. That'll do it. That's all you need. After that, you just need characters in the world.
To be honest, I feel like it was kind of a flaw that they don't bring up the reason why Yukiko, I think that's her name, that doesn't actually give us a reason as to why gears are important, with the exception of Megaloboxing, until the very last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a somewhat recurring plot point. Like, they bring it up, and I just had no idea what they were thinking of. Like, why would you need this gear stuff if you're not a boxer?
I kind of just assumed that it was like useful for a lot of different tasks, construction, military, and all that sort of thing.
Well, they were pushing it for military as like they could make it somewhat of an armor. I was assuming they were being like, oh, with this type of stuff, you could use it for construction to help increase endurance and stuff like that.
They weren't pushing it as armor for the military in the last episode. They were saying that a regular real life exoskeleton like this, it's supposed to enhance soldier strength
Yeah, so they can carry heavier guns.
Did they not make a fucking Wikipedia page? I'm trying to find out the one guy who looks like the god from.
I mean, you can find it on my anime list, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm on my anime list on the fandom page, and like the whole page is messed up. Weird. It's weird.
Wait, are you on the Wikia or are you on my anime list?
The wiki. I'll go to my anime list.
Yeah, that's probably better. Is set up in this.
Yeah.
That's it.
I absolutely adore everything there is to adore about Yuri. Yuri is absolutely my favorite character from this show. He is just I don't know what exactly it is I find so fascinating about Yuri. Maybe not even fascinating, just the design is perfect. I think Yuri is absolutely just okay. For one, he's hot. I have to say that he is a hot man.
Nose is different.
There's
Alright.
no way to sidestep it.
Well, one thing I don't think I ever understood is how old Yuri is supposed to be. Because he looks like he's, I don't know, maybe